Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Power of Knowing Forum's Knowledge Nexus Talks, a LinkedIn Live event, episode 178. Today, we are discussing a topic on future proof formula, internal audit's role in safeguarding success. To have this topic discussed, we have the honor of having Mr. PCR Suresh, a banking professional, operational risk, internal audits, standard chartered, consult, consulting cyber security certified. So, without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Suresh on to the podcast event. Hi, Suresh. Welcome to our podcast.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for inviting me to your podcast. 178. I mean, is
Yes,
that
sir.
some sort of a record or you're behind the
Uh,
curve?
it is not a record per se, sir. We've been doing podcasts for the last 1 year, 3 months now, and we run these podcasts on a three podcast a week, like and one on cybersecurity and technology, one on managerial stuff, and one on leadership and roles there. So that's how we've been doing this podcast.
Okay.
Welcome to our podcast, sir. A small intro about yourself, sir. Your journey that would help the audience, sir.
Okay. I am a banking professional because I've spent most of my time in the banking industry.
Okay.
But in the bank itself, I spent a lot of time in various functions. But before I took a golden handshake, I was the head of audit and assurance for the Global Shared Services Center, which is located at Chennai,
Hmm.
for the consumer banking vertical. And prior to that, even in the audit function, I was fortunate enough to audit even technology and
Okay.
in a few other product verticals. After that, I've started my own company, which is a consulting firm,
Okay.
primarily a risk management consultant for select clients. I've got a few of the big fat clients with me, and I'm happy with just working with them. Uh,
Okay.
most of them are Chennai-based manufacturing companies.
Hmm.
So I consult for them as an advisor and as a consultant for risk management and cybersecurity.
Okay.
So I think that should be enough
Yes, sir. Yes,
to
sir.
talk
That's
about
a good
it.
intro that you have
Yeah.
given. Yeah, sir. Looking at what's one surprising trend you observed in internal audit for the last 1 year, and how can professionals leverage it for success? Because internal audit is one thing which many people take it very lightly, right?
Hmm.
So your take on it, sir.
Yeah. Although I'm not, actively conducting audits, I do, talk to heads of audit, at least 6 or 7 of them,
Mhm.
on almost a monthly basis, and guiding them to do conduct audits at in various companies and various industries actually.
Okay.
Couple of them in manufacturing, couple of them in IT space, and one of them in the banking sector. So
Okay.
what I have seen in the last 1 year as a trend is the increased number of findings in the cybersecurity risk control space. Now,
Hmm.
this is something you see day in and day out. If you open
Yeah.
the newspapers, you see something related to a cybersecurity scam or just a scam, a phishing scam. People are being cheated. It's
Yeah.
very agonizing to know that people are still vulnerable. I'm talking
Yeah.
from an individual's point of view as well as company staff
Hmm.
point of view.
Okay.
So I think there is an increased trend, where cybersecurity controls are miserably failing. I was in fact addressing MSMEs of Tamil Nadu, as a part of the Confederation of Indian Industry conclave.
Hmm.
And, I realized that although they have embarked on a digitization journey, they still have issues in cybersecurity controls. Okay,
Hmm.
simple things like basic things like, strong passwords being used, multi-factor authentication, software updates, security policy. All this, is really not, up to industry standard. So there is a huge potential for auditors to look at security controls. Even, I'm not even talking about, advanced security controls that is adopted by many IT companies worldwide. Um, basic controls, security controls like access controls, strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, updates, regular updates of patches, and so on and so forth. is a great opportunity. I think auditors have a huge opportunity and also a huge responsibility
Yeah.
to educate every member of the organization, not just during the course of the audit, but even otherwise, to do something to educate them and to help them to secure their information assets.
Sir, you made a very valid point where passwords are still at rate 1 to 3. Okay, multi-factor is not being used. They feel that is a burden, that has to go. I think that those are things that professionals have to look at and see securing their data. In your experience, what is the most underrated skill in internal auditors today, and why is it essential for future proofing organizations and professionals, sir?
Okay, as auditors, I'm going to think or assume that technical skills such as auditing skills and risk management skills are absolutely essential for you to be an auditor. But more important than that um, is the communication skills of an auditor is something which is completely underrated. And
Hmm.
it is also lagging.
Okay.
Auditors should be good storytellers. No, if you're not able to communicate to senior management and to the stakeholders, the risk that they have identified, it could be a technical, risk. If you're not able to explain the risk and its impact, whether it is a root cause or whether it is a impact or whether it is a recommendation that you're giving, unless you're able to tell the story so that they're able to comprehend it in a very simple way, you're not going to be able to convince the management to spurn action on your recommendations. So I think one of the underrated skills for auditors is this ability to tell a story, to
Hmm.
communicate effectively. Auditors are not good at that. So there is a
Okay.
huge opportunity for auditors to actually look at, because we're not even talking about taking advantage of machine learning tools and AI that is available to us today, and some companies have taken advantage of it. So if you're going to communicate to them and convince them to put in a budget to establish automated controls, you need to be able to tell them a story. You need to give them that future picture as to what is happening in the industry. I think that's more important for auditors. That's an underrated skill, I believe.
Okay. When uh, giving a talk to leaders, what is the integrated piece that you would look at as a human centric approach into governance and risk management, sir?
Um, See, I would consider humans as the biggest asset of any organization, right? So whether it is your own staff, whether it is your vendor, whether it is somebody in the supply chain, whoever it is, they are the biggest asset. You might have the best of the systems in the world. You might have the best of the firewalls in the world that you have put in place. But if you are not able to look at every human asset as your line of defense, because in audit we say this, your staff is the most effective defense in the organization. It's the only defense. We talk about three
Hmm.
lines of defense. I would say that your staff, your people, are the only line of defense. So understanding that humans are the biggest asset and empowering them to play a role. It is not just the role of the auditor or an operational risk guy to protect the organization's interest, right? It is every employee in the organization has to play a role. So the tone and the tenor from the top is very important. What is the leadership telling everyone in the organization? What is it that they're communicating to their staff?
Hmm.
What is the level of awareness that they are generating about risk management, and telling them that everyone is equally responsible for preventing organization from operational losses. I think that's the most important thing.
Sir, you made a important point where security is everybody's role. I think that is one more underrated skill. I think the organizations have, where people think security is more related to the organization and they are not going to be part of it, or they are not liable for it. So, how does that uh, have to change over our period, sir? Because audits are happening, people still are doing similar mistakes. What role does internal auditor play in aligning risk management with strategic business goals, Any stories where alignment can be transformed as an outcome, sir?
See, from my personal experience, I've got many instances, right, where audit can actually, play a key role in strategic alignment or strategic business objectives of the organization. It can, for example, drive innovation. It can, for example, drive customer experience, how to enhance customer experience. It can improve operational efficiency. Improving operational efficiency is a huge opportunity for every auditor. I can give you an example. I was once in a country in the African region. I think it was Botswana, where I was auditing the consumer banking business. And within 2 to 3 days of audit, I suspended the audit and started discussing with them. I spoke to the head of audit and I said, there is no point in just going ahead with this audit because already there are a few issues, a lot of high risk issues that are coming up. I would like to see how I can help them. So here we took an approach to just look at process inefficiencies, and then I had plunged into recommending some operational tweaks, changes to the operation as a corrective control. And then within the next 2 3 months, we had very good results. They were very bad in bad shape on their losses. Their assets were going through the roof. So their NPAs were going through the roof, and their credit losses were very high. That was the business was no longer sustainable. That consumer business itself was no longer sustainable in that region. So
Okay.
this tweaking of the process itself, just a operational efficiency, control that was changed, that enabled them to liquidate some of these non-performing assets and come back into the green within a 2 to 3 months period. So there are numerous examples where auditors can actually play a role only if they have a mindset that is outside of audit and looking to the organization's business goals and objectives as to how they can align their expertise and their skills to contribute to the business. And that's when I think it will make a huge impact to the organization.
Sir, you spoke, you had a challenge and you were talking. With that piece, when we look at leaderships, uh, this can be a good example where we can play a crucial role in overcoming challenge during the audit process. How do you look at these pieces, sir, when taking up a human-centric leadership where there is nothing that is, you said you were auditing a customer there. So in that case, how do we navigate those challenges and bring them up to speed from a empathy side plays crucial role or challenges during this audit process?
See, one of the things that you can do is, auditors tend to go on a fault finding mission. That's the mindset most auditors have, right? So if you're actually willing to take a very empathetic approach, when you say a human centric approach, you take an empathetic approach. When you're able to listen to them and effectively communicate, most of the things will be resolved. If I understood your question right, you said how can we, as a auditor, communicate to the leadership of the organization or the auditability body
Yes. Yeah. Right.
to how they can avoid some of the pitfalls that normally come up in audit. So it's about communicating to them and just helping them to identify all the risks that is inherent in the organization, right, or in that business or in that product. And if you're able to communicate that even before you start an audit, if you start engaging with them and communicate to them that, guys, can you just share with me a process risk analysis, for example? Have you done a process risk analysis or have you done a product risk analysis? So even at that stage, you can just sound them off and tell them to start doing a pre-audit work exercise that will actually enable them to fix some of these low-hanging fruits even before you go for audit. That way, you can kill some of these medium risks and low risks. You can just focus on only the high risks that would be existent in an organization. I don't know whether I understood your question right and gave the right
Yeah,
answer.
your pointers were clear on that, sir. Yes, sir. Normally, what happens while we do audit is there is a lot of collaboration that is needed with multiple departments when we are doing audit to an organization. So, how do we foster collaboration between auditors and the other departments while we maintain the objectivity, sir?
See, you asked me a very interesting question. No? There are auditors who collaborate too much,
Hmm.
uh, and there are auditors who are completely
Not collaborative.
not cooperative. Forget even collaboration.
Okay.
So it's a fine balance that you need to strike, right?
Hmm.
But then, as long as the mindset is right. For example, audit is an independent function, but it is
Hmm.
not independent of the organization. There's a huge difference, right?
Okay.
It is an independent function, but you're not independent of the organization. You are also working for the organization. And the stakeholders also got to realize that auditors are not, external policemen or cops who are coming to find fault. They are there to add value. Now, if this mindset is there, most of the problems are resolved. The other
Okay.
thing is when you go in as an auditor, the stakeholders are very, very smart. They look at you, they look at your track record, they look at
Yes.
whether you are a subject matter expert. They
Hmm.
look at whether you understand, the products, the services, the businesses, the industry trends, the local geographies. They see that. So if
Yes.
you command that respect as an expert, and then you sort of influence collaboration, it happens very smoothly because you are professional in your approach. You have the business objectives as on top of your mind, and you want to add value by using your expertise. And end of the day, you're helping the organization. Although you might find deficiencies, you're going to add value. In the long run, the business is going to benefit out of what you're doing. As long as they see that value in the collaboration, I think this collaboration will be successful.
What advice would you give to leaders who want to integrate the approach into governance and risk management?
Approach meaning what? What approach you?
Integrating more human-centric approach into governance and risk management.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier. I think the tone of the leadership from the top is very,
Hmm.
very important, right? Now, if you want to integrate risk management into every uh, fabric of the organization, or if you want it to be in the DNA of the organization, then I think the culture of the organization itself has to change. What we call as the risk culture,
Hmm.
you have to foster that risk culture, right? I have worked in a bank that is predominantly there are various types of banks. Okay, we classify them as a credit centric bank or a sales centric bank or a risk centric bank. So
Okay.
I don't want to take names, but there are American banks that are very, very aggressive in sales, right? And they the credit and risk takes a backseat. But there are other organizations like the British banks, which are on the other side of the spectrum, where they are too conservative, they're credit tight, and
Hmm.
too much of risk awareness that they even to some extent scuttle business growth. So I think it's a question of the leadership in the organization understanding the balance and enhancing the risk culture of the organization by completely understanding the business goals, not impacting the business. You have a business goal to achieve, but you want to achieve it in the standards and in the processes and the ethical ways that you want to achieve that business. I think that's very important. Communication from top down will be the key.
I think what you're saying is keeping governance intact and making the company risk averse and putting proper standards is what I think you are referring to. Am I
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Create
Okay.
generating a culture, a risk awareness culture.
Okay.
Every person should think risk as he thinks of his business, if he thinks of his product, if he thinks of his sales. You also factor in the risk that is involved in doing certain actions, right? So I think that's very important. That's very key.
Sir, based on your experience over the years, there could be a lot of challenges and lessons that you've learned. What's one challenge that significantly shaped your career in internal audit, and how did we overcome that, sir?
Oh, many I've been beaten up in many occasions, right? So uh, I was when I moved my when my role was moved from an operational risk person to a group internal auditor. I was catapulted into that role as a head of audit, and then suddenly, being pushed into pre-audit planning. Right, you have a whole set of things that you do before an audit. The entire planning of audit cycles, the entire planning of the auditable universe. I didn't know how to do it, and I had to rely on others to do it. So I really got beaten up there. But I had to burn extra hours and talk to colleagues and peers, and even sometimes people in the team to understand how to do it. And that was a huge challenge. Managing resources. You have limited resources, but you have an ambitious plan to complete, and you as the head of audit is supposed to complete that within a year. And that becomes a challenge if your planning is not correct. And I was not good at planning at that point in time. Today,
Okay.
if you ask me, wake me up on the street, I'll probably be able to do that. But I did that only by learning it, by getting beaten up, and by learning it from others. So the challenge is not in doing the audit, but the challenge is in planning for the audits much before the audit happens. So if you can get that right with the resources that you have, then you are not only a successful auditor, but a value contributor to the organization.
Valid points there, sir. No, how, see, we have seen a lot of resistance when it comes to people we give as an auditor as some recommendations. How have you ever encountered a resistance to an audit recommendation, and how did you approach that kind of a situation?
See, audit resistance is almost 99% of the time.
Yes, sir.
No auditee, accepts
Accept
any
what you.
finding that you give them. So it's quite often you find resistance. But then, as I said, earlier, if you are empathetic, if you are willing to listen, and if you are able to effectively communicate, if we are willing to listen and effectively communicate, I think it resolves most of the issues, right? When you give a finding, you don't give them a surprise. What I call as a no surprise culture. What happens is auditors wait for the end of the audit or just before the audit. They will go and download all the issues and findings that they have, giving limited time for them to respond. And by the time they respond, you're off. You're
Yeah.
back to your seat and back to your office wherever you are from. So upfront communication, not giving them a surprise, being open to listening to them, saying what do they have to say about a finding that you're giving them, and talking to them about the risk. You might sometimes feel that it is a risk, but they might have some other mitigatory control, which you're not aware of, which is not probably articulated. So I think upfront communication, transparent communication, a no surprise culture, and effective communication will actually help you resolve it. Because end of the day, if you are able to convince them that this is an open risk and you need to take this action to mitigate that risk, they cannot say no.
Yeah.
But if they say no, then you always have the intervention of the senior management of the organization.
Sir, most of the organizations fail to build their internal audit function. And what's common pitfall organizations fall into while building their internal audit function, and how can they avoid it, sir?
See, I told the same pitfall that I experienced when you asked me what are the most challenging
Yeah, yeah.
part of your job and your experiences. Uh, Pre-audit planning, right? So most organizations have an ambitious audit coverage plan. Okay? Audit is the last function that they think of when it comes to resources and budgeting. But the expectation is so huge, right? That they really give a plan that is much beyond the resources that you probably have in your hands. So that's something that heads of audits, especially the group head of audits, the senior most person audit, should effectively negotiate with the management to get sufficient resources and budgets. That's number one. Number two, I think in terms of people, we have this debate happening even today to strike a balance between business experts and professional auditors. There is one school of thought saying that you should, have uh, more professional auditors who have audit qualifications. On another side, we have a school of thought where it says that you need people with business process expertise Only they can, for example, there is a manufacturing organization that I'm working with right now. The first thing that we found was there was a huge number of frauds happening in their civil projects.
Okay.
So, so the management took a stick and started beating up the audit function, asking them to find out what is happening. Why are we having so many issues on civil projects? Auditors were also working hard, but the fact was, although there were a lot of competent auditors, none of them understood civil engineering.
Okay.
So you need somebody who understands civil engineering to, audit a civil project.
Civil project.
So you need skill sets that relate to that particular product or business or geography. That is something where many companies fail. They don't have a balance. They bring favorites, they bring ex-colleagues, and they bring people that they're comfortable with, but fail to balance that skill set that is required. You need a diverse set of skills that matches with the diverse type of products that you have. So that's another place that they fail. And then I told you about the process, the audit process itself. Having unrealistic expectations with limited resources could be a challenge, and then you're setting up yourself for failure. You might as well better fight with the organization and tell this is what I can deliver, and I cannot deliver what you want me to deliver because I don't have the resources. Give me the resources, I'll deliver it. Otherwise, you're setting up yourself for failure. So that's something audit functions face. Yeah.
Being an auditor, there is always a tedious work that happens, and it is not always fulfilling work actually looking at. What's the most fulfilling aspect of your role as an internal auditor, and how does that inspire you to tackle daily challenges?
See, like in anyone's life, there are good times, there are bad times.
Yeah.
So in audit also you have good times
Times
and you also have bad times.
that
Okay,
time. Yeah.
but the thing is, the most fulfilling aspect is as a third line of defense. The
Hmm.
expectation from the senior management is very, very high. The
Yeah.
reliance that they put on your report is very, very high. The findings, especially that you give, uh, especially if it is a high risk finding,
Hmm.
and the impact that it can have on the organization itself is unimaginable, and that's very fulfilling. When they recognize your work and the impact it has on the decisions that is being made by the management, that's very fulfilling. That's one aspect. So as auditors, we always relentlessly pursue to identify all the risks and controls and see whether they're adequately implemented. So that itself is an inspiration by itself. Okay, that's the professional part of it. But the other thing is, in audit function, there is an element of glamour and fun. Okay, you meet new people, you go to new markets, you look at new products, you look at new geographies, you get used to new cultures, and you have a nice time. So that also keeps you inspired. So there is a balance. You have tough times, and you have good times, even within in a week's span of audit. So whatever you undergo during the day doing the audit, you just let your hair loose in the evening when you have dinner. You have fun, right? So that's the glamour of doing an audit, being in an audit function, especially when you're in a group internal audit function, which is and working in a company which has got multiple geographies. You get to travel a lot, right? And so it sort of offsets some of these pressures that you undergo. But the most fulfilling thing is that the impact that it has on the organization, your report, your finding, that can actually have a huge bearing on the decision making process of the organization, the leadership team. That's very fulfilling.
Now that it is fulfilling for us, but how do we stay motivated and inspire your team during a high pressure audit of uncertain times, sir?
Okay, I think staying inspired. One of the things that we all look for is senior management support, whether it is within the audit function or within the business. Most of the time, the senior management is very understanding, and they will give you the support that is required, even when you're going through high pressure audits or going through uncertain times, because they understand the value that you can bring to the table. But as an auditor, I have always encouraged colleagues and peers and teams to stay focused. Staying focused on audit objectives and organizational goals is the only thing that will keep you going. Because end of the day, you have to know that you're going to add value to the organization. Whatever is the impact, that impact is going to add value to the organization. So and the impact can have a huge repercussion on people. It can have a huge repercussion on the team that you're auditing. It can have a huge impact on the business strategic business unit that you're auditing. It can have an impact on their career itself. So when you understand that impact that it can make and refocus on the business objectives and audit objectives, you will get the job done, irrespective of what the pressure is, what the challenges are. I think the job will get done. So it's all about refocusing on objectives, not just audit objectives, but also on the organizational goals. That's when you're able to deliver what you're supposed to deliver.
Sir, I think you've traveled a lot of journey on the audit cycle part, right? So
Yeah.
it's a huge journey that you've done. What's one piece of advice that if you start today back again, you will give to yourself first, or pressure starting in this field, sir?
Yeah, one thing if I were to start my career again, I would have definitely added a lot of skills to my bag,
Hmm.
right? Audit, like any other function, um, is a function that expects you to learn continuously. Learning is a continuous process. You have to keep learning. Unless you keep learning, you cannot stay abreast. You cannot know what is happening in the industry. So learning. Uh, did I lose you in between? I think
Yes,
you
sir.
were.
I lost you for a
Got it.
second.
Yeah. So
You
it is a
want me to
continuous
shift
journey.
you to the laptop, sir?
I can, but my audio is a little bad. So let's see if I get disturbance
Yeah.
again, I probably switch over.
I
So can you hear me now?
yes, sir.
Yeah. So my I would have done a little bit more learning than what I've learned today, and I have no regrets about it. But to newcomers, I would say it's a continuous journey. So learn, harness technology. Today we are living in a world where technology is disrupting businesses everywhere. So as auditors, you need to know how to harness technology and enhance productivity not only of the organization but also productivity of the audit function itself. And then how you can harness technology to improve predictability and continuous monitoring or real-time monitoring, real-time auditing, high risk auditing. So many things can be done in today's environment if you take advantage of the technology that's around us, and if you're open-minded and willing to learn. So I think learning is the key. Learning is the key. Keeping an open mind and making sure that you're abreast of the rest is the only way that you're going to be successful in audit function.
Wonderful, sir. Sir, any unconventional thinking during an audit which you did and it was kind of a game changer for you, sir?
Um, See, I mentioned to you about one instance that happened in Botswana. So likewise, there was another instance in Kenya. We
Hmm.
went to audit a consumer banking business in Kenya, and same thing happened there. Within first 4 days, uh, I was a team leader at that point in time. So I told my manager, so there is no point in continuing this audit. I already have about plenty of red flags. I want to close the audit. I know the result of the audit, so we can close the audit right now. And we had another things 7 or 8 days time. I said I want to spend some time with the business
Hmm.
and to train them on the processes that they have. It was about the collection process that they were following. So you wouldn't believe we actually went there to audit the function. We stopped the audit in 4 to 5 days time and said we will issue the report. But the remaining time, the remaining 7 days, was actually spent training the business on collection processes and credit processes. And that made a huge impact. The CEO of the region, the business, they were astonished. They said, "No, audit has never done something like this before," and we are so
Hmm.
grateful that you guys were able to shut down the audit and then focus on business process improvement. And by training the senior management personnel there, we added great value to them, and it was well appreciated both by the audit function and the management team. So that was a very different thinking. I think that was probably in my career the first time that we did it. So we stopped audit and entered into training the business function. Most companies wouldn't encourage that, even would not even allow that. But I was
My
lucky to work.
question was the on the same lines and saying that how did we build trust with top management, ensuring their recommendations drive action? So you've covered that pointer over a discussion where you stopped the audit and you were able to give some of the recommendations, and that recommendations were taken, right? So it makes a lot of difference when we give recommendations, and that saves a lot of time for the business. What do you say, sir?
Yeah, you were asking me how do we build trust? Is it what is
Yeah.
it?
How do internal auditors build trust with top management to ensure their recommendations drive action? So you mentioned that in the previous pointer, mostly saying that you stopped the audit, you gave some of the recommendations, that recommendations changed, and I think that is where the whole outcome was turned out, right? That's what you are
Yeah,
explaining.
yeah.
So, sir, from a business owner perspective, how can internal audit contribute for long-term resilience and competitive advantage?
See, I think audit should take a place in the boardrooms. Um, some companies have started doing that, you know. So when strategic decisions are being made, when future business decisions are being taken at the boardrooms, audit should play an advisory role and be a part of that
Hmm.
boardroom to play an advisory role in the strategic business development of the organization itself, where they're
Hmm.
not actually playing an audit role but a risk management role and a very strategic perspective role. I think that's something audit can do. The other thing that audit can do is to take advantage of the tools that we have today. Technology has enhanced so much that we have, AI powered tools that are available that can actually spurn a lot of data, right? Data is the key. Data and automation is the key in audit too.
Yeah.
So if we can actually take data, analyze data sets, large sets of data, and use predictive analytic tools to come out with risks that you can foresee for the organization and tell them in advance, or sort of forecast or predict risks that can come up for the organization and tell them how they should gear up to face that risk and how they should put controls to the risk, is something that can really help the organization, help the management to set aside necessary budgets and resources to handle those risks.
Okay. Sir,
I don't know whether I answered it very
yes,
clearly,
sir.
but
Yes, sir. So I was going to look at the final pointer on trends and analysis. You mentioned briefly with AI and digital transformation of disrupting the industries. What is the biggest opportunity and risk for internal auditors in the next era, sir, or this era or next era?
see, I don't see any risk. I see only opportunities everywhere.
Yeah.
The risk is if you're not, learning quickly and harnessing technology and um, bringing skills, diverse set of skills that is required to, harness some of these technologies that's happening around you. Then I see that as a risk. But otherwise, I think it's a huge opportunity. Like I told you, even MSMEs, the conclave that I attended. So many of them there, at least the audience that were there, we had about 250 companies that were represented in the CII conclave, and many of them were on a digital journey. They were all going ahead and digitizing their products and processes, and Internet of Things were being implanted left, right, and center in factories and manufacturing centers
Yeah.
and distribution chains. Even truckers were putting IoT devices in their trucks to track their goods movement, freight forwarding operators. So technology is becoming all pervasive. Even small companies, micro companies, medium sized companies, everybody is embarking into technology. So audit function also needs to embark on that journey. They cannot stay quiet. So they have to harness technology. They have to import the skills that is necessary to take advantage of this technology and get into a futuristic mode to be able to tell the organization on a predictive mode that these are the risks that I foresee in the next year. These are the risks that I foresee in the next 2 to 3 years time. if you're going into this market, if you're going into this product, if you're going into this service. That's the sort of role I see audit should play to gain the trust of senior management. That's when they respect them, and that's when they will, make them part of their boardroom decision making. I think that's very important. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir. I would like to summarize the points that we discussed in the session act as we are near the closing session of the session. We started with the icebreaker on the industry insights, and then we spoke about empathy and human centric relationships, some challenges and lessons learned. Engaging and inspiring the audience is what we spoke about, and out of the box some thinkings on game changing stuff, how effective audits can be done with looking at business being looked at, and some perspectives how management, c-suite and ceos can be brought in for discussion, and long term resilience and competitive advantage. That's what we discussed about. Then we finally spoke about the trends and analysis where AI and digital transformation is bringing into internal audit, sir. With this, I think we are good to wrap up our session, sir. Thank you for being on part of the this one. Any pointers that you would like to add as a final comment, sir?
Thank you so much. You are so knowledgeable on the audit function. Your questions were all so in depth. I was getting little caught off the guard. So
Okay.
your questions were so good and so in depth that I really would have loved to have more time to give you a very specific response and case studies and examples of various issues that you raised. But nevertheless, I think it was a fantastic session. I enjoyed answering your questions, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. With this, we have streamed this LinkedIn live session onto YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We hope you found this discussion valuable. Thank you for joining us today on LinkedIn Live. Our next episode is scheduled for tomorrow, which is our 179th episode, retention and why best employees leave and how to keep them. That's the discussion that we are going to have tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Looking forward to see you again. Good day. Bye for now. So thank you. It was great
Thank you.
talking to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.